Monday, June 29th. I'm Rem.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, HTML5.
Let's do this.
Well, last week I went to SIFMA in the city. My work, actually, I got a free pass, and they let me take like 4 hours off to go poke around.
What's SIFMA?
SIFMA is the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association, which is, I won't get into all the details of that, but basically what this was a trade show designed specifically for high-end, ultra-enterprise technology as it applies to the financial markets of the world.
That's a really specific trade show. Was
You know
it
what?
crowded?
It was crazy crowded.
Wow.
It was actually gigantic. It was bigger than a lot of the smaller anime cons we go to.
Huh?
It was
Great.
in the Hilton, I think.
Oh, it wasn't in the Javits?
Nah.
Oh, okay.
But they used like almost all the function space and they had all these different areas. But I didn't go to SIFMA last year. I didn't think to. But this year, I took my free pass and I went and I walked around. I didn't go into any of the events or any of the like behind closed doors things, but I met the people who work for the group that makes the fix protocol, like the actual people that make the fix spec.
Oh, there's a people. It's not like a an industry standard. It's a one company makes it.
Well, no, it is an industry standard, and there's an open consortium that makes it.
Right. The consortium.
So that was there.
Oh.
So I talked to
Well,
him.
consortium is usually a bunch of companies, not just one.
Well, yeah, but the body that is created by them, the body that actually maintains, like the infrastructure, like the website where they host the current standard and the comments on the new standard and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to them and they were pretty cool. And I learned, I'm the NTP guy. I've realized over time that I'm one of the few NTP guys, as Server Fault has told me, as I went and answered every question about NTP because people just don't know how to use it.
Yep.
But that's what I use. That's what I know. And as I was walking around, my boss was walking around. He comes to me the next day after SISMA and says, "Hey, so can you get us some of that PTP?" And I'm like, "What's PTP?" And he says, "The Precision Time Protocol. It should get us nanosecond accuracy as opposed to the NTP microsecond accuracy."
Is it BS?
No, it's not. However, I don't know if it is useful.
Is
yet.
it non-free?
Well, it's non-free in the sense that it requires hardware. It is. Here's as far as I can tell. All I've read to qualify this, I have read a white paper, and I have looked at a diagram. I haven't gone into any more depth than that. But the PTP, as far as I can tell, is a mechanism of using a physical device to insert hardware timestamps into packets, such that you can determine the latency between devices to the nanosecond level. And using that, you can then have perfectly synchronized time with real-time kernels between all your devices.
Okay, but do you really need that much precision?
We do.
More than microseconds?
You realize I have developers coming to me already in our testing environment, and they're like, "Look at these logs." I'm like, "Okay," and they're like, "This is bullshit. How come the time is off by like 6 microseconds?" And I'm like, "Jesus Christ, man! How can you even tell?" Like the clock.
Are you sure they're not just bullshitting you?
No, I'm sure.
What did they do before you were there? The time must have been way off.
Well, no, because they weren't doing this kind of thing. My company is advancing rapidly in what we do, and this was stuff that wasn't even done when I wasn't there.
Uh-huh.
But NTP is basically the protocol for synchronizing things in a way
We did a show about it.
that is nice for computers. But nice for computers does not mean nice for accurate timekeeping.
If you need that much accurate timekeeping, just get your own atomic clock and connect all your computers to it directly.
That actually would be a terrible idea for a number of reasons.
Why?
One, it's not so much, one idea is that you want to have the time be synchronous between all of your devices. Two, I want my time to synchronize to an external body. If I'm following my atomic clock, but someone else is using their atomic clock, while the intervals are the same, I have to make sure that I match exactly at the start and then nothing gets off.
Get 2 atomic clocks.
A better way is to synchronize to the same atomic clock that all the people I do business with are syncing to.
And synchronize your atomic clock with that atomic clock.
Well, you see, why don't I just use PTP to synchronize my devices to my...
Because it seems like an unnecessary and ludicrous thing.
Nah, it looks pretty... the math behind it's pretty cool. I will in a couple weeks, I'll know the fullness of this, and I will be able to talk about it in depth. But
Also, I think that the number of people on the Earth who have a need for a greater than NGP accuracy is maybe like 2.
yeah, you'd be surprised.
All right.
But what about science? But anyway,
Scientists have their own atomic clocks. Like I just
PTP
said.
is pretty cool. The one
That's
thing
why
that,
all the atomic clocks are at science
the
laboratories.
one thing that worries me is that it appears to need an entire separate physical infrastructure.
Uh-huh.
As in, you have a backplane Ethernet or something that everything uses just to synchronize time,
So you need to double your network size.
which is fine. Like at IBM, we did that to have a full backplane monitoring system, which basically came down to me connecting an entire new LAN to every server.
Basically, every computer needs like an extra NIC, and you need to double the switches and double the routers. And
Well, we probably wouldn't have routers for this. It would probably only be on a local subnet.
no, even so.
Yeah, but I mean, we already have like 2, 4, or 5 gigi interfaces on every single server. So
Are those the real interfaces or
yes,
virtual?
real interfaces.
Is there enough room for more interfaces?
Yes.
How many network cards you got in there?
Actually, we just ordered these Ninja boxes. They have these special hardware NICs that have all this packet inspection stuff built into them, such that I can fully sniff and analyze Gigi in real time.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
All right.
It is absolutely crazy. And then all we discovered was, well, now we need to make our application do that.
Uh-huh.
That was what I spent my couple of days doing. But SIFMA was cool. The one thing that's interesting, I've been to a lot of trade shows, and they always suck. They're just really boring, and it's
What?
all...
Trade shows don't suck.
Well, a lot of
It just
technology,
depends on the trade.
industry-centric trade shows tend to be a lot of people trying to sell me things that are not entirely true, or trying to sell me products I don't actually need, and mostly trying to sell me things but not giving me
You have to go
information.
to food industry trade shows.
Well, because they give me food, and it's great. So SIFMA, basically, I will describe it to you like this: there was infinite booze of any stripe, and free food and coffee, and hangout places and couches, and I entered to win like all these BMW motorcycles, and it was.
You didn't win any, I noticed.
Well, the drawings aren't for another couple weeks.
Oh.
Yeah, I entered a lot of contests at this thing.
Is a drop in your business card contest?
Yep, but some of them were fill out this survey. So
Ah.
I basically carried around work business cards for companies that looked legitimate and Geeknights business cards for companies that looked like they were making shit up.
Nah.
Because I didn't want the companies that were making shit up to ever contact me in a professional capacity. But if they email me with Geeknights, that's great. I'll get them on the show.
God.
But like the London Stock Exchange had a booth, and I hung out there, and they were just giving out champagne and sitting in this little lounge and just chatting, and everyone was all just hanging out.
I should get that job.
And yeah, it was real fun. I wouldn't. Some year I should just take the day off work and just go to this convention and just drink and eat all day and then go home.
Not a bad idea.
It's free.
So that's the reason they have those things.
Yeah.
Is basically everyone's like, I'll give you as much money as you want. Let me get the day off work and just fucking hang out. Oh, thank you. Here's even more money. Oh, thank you for getting me out of work. Oh, you saved me. Oh, thank you. Okay.
It was all right.
So check this news out. Ready?
I'm checking.
So remember when Pirate Bay did Bay Img?
Whatever came of that? I never went there.
Basically,
after
no
the-
one uses it, as
Yeah.
far as I can tell. I mean, like, I've never seen anyone link to it.
I'll
or-
go there right now while you keep talking.
All right.
Because I remember I predicted that there's no use for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically, you know, it's like, what kind of image are you going to post that other people are going to take down?
Other than
Other
child
than
porn.
and they weren't allowing child porn. They were pretty much saying anything but child porn.
All
I
right,
mean,
I'm looking at Pokemon. All right, I'm going to look around here.
I mean, it's like you can just host images on your own website
All right,
trivially.
you know what the biggest tag is right here?
What?
Ranma.
All right.
All right.
So is everyone storing all the 4chan images? Well, you know, I mean, there's always places to put images. We don't really need Bay Image. But they're making Video Bay, and the Extreme Beta is out. Now, I wouldn't recommend using this Extreme
oh my
Beta.
god, it's all Pokemon porn
Of course.
and Ranma porn.
Of course. So Video Bay, I wouldn't recommend using the Extreme Beta. 'cause-
It's a Vaporeon and a Pidgeot having sex.
Why are you looking at it still?
It's like a train wreck. Oh, there's a penis. Okay, I'm done. Oh my god.
So The video bay, the extreme beta, you should not use it for 2 reasons. Number one is extreme beta probably doesn't work.
2, it's gonna be just like Bayimge. It's gonna be Ranma and Pokemon porn and nothing else.
That's possibly true. But 2, apparently since it's so beta, right now they're like storing all your passwords in plain text, and you can tell they're doing this because they email you the password you set after you register.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I wouldn't use it right now, but it is interesting because while Bayimge, right, isn't really necessary because there's no people really taking images off of hosted places. Video Bay, I mean, YouTube takes down a lot of copyrighted stuff. I mean, how many of our things of the day always get taken down and then we can't find them? I mean,
so someone uploaded what appears to be all of XKCD to Bayimge.
why are you still looking at Bayimge?
I'm fascinated by it.
Anyway, Video Bay could be pretty awesome if
here's all of Dilbert.
If people post like all the copyrighted videos they get taken off of YouTube to Video Bay, maybe Video Bay could become like the default go-to place. But I wonder, they're currently in extreme beta. I mean, by the time they're not in extreme beta, are they going to be like, is video in the website still going to be something people want?
A lot of people were saying that Bayimge, or I guess they'll say the same thing about this, are going to be used for good purposes. Like right now, the situation in Iran. It'd be great if there was a place where people could put all this stuff to where no one would take it down or mess with it, and the world can see it. There are a grand total of 3 images with the Iran tag on Bayimge right now. Bayimge is not being used for anything worthwhile.
Not that you can tell right away, anyway.
It's nothing but Pokemon porn.
It's mostly Pokemon porn.
I would say the vast majority of it is Pokemon porn.
Wow. Well, Video Bay might just turn into Pokemon porn video city. So if you like Pokemon porn, this is good news for you. Now, I think it's just interesting that despite guilty verdicts and everyone, Pirate Bay is gonna keep fighting like there's no tomorrow. Like Napster caved, Supernova, that other, remember the original BitTorrent video site? They caved. Everyone is caved. But Pirate Bay is going to fight forever until they can't fight anymore. And in fact, they're not only going to keep themselves up, but they're going to keep doing new stuff to stick it to the man. And that's good by me. Even if the things they actually make, are just useless Pokemon porn hosting situations, it doesn't matter as long as, they're still sticking it to the man,
So, in other news, we all know Michael Jackson. We talked about that. He's gone.
No, we didn't.
We talked about that on the previous show.
No, we didn't. The previous show was a Thursday, and he died on Friday?
But we did a show on celebrity death, Scott.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Right.
So, would we have done that show prior to this?
I forgot about that show.
I mean, it would have been crazy if we had done that show randomly, before all this happened.
Yeah, I forgot. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
But
I guess I was wrong.
There were 2 interesting stories on Slashdot, kind of follow-ups to this. One was that the primary cause of all the websites slowing down as a result of this were not the websites or the hosting themselves, but the ad networks that couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I mean, it is a problem. You visit a website, right? Like, take our website, right? I got the Google Analytics on there. It's like, okay, the website loads. And they have to wait for Google Analytics to load. Or you visit, a website that has, ads from Project Wonderful. It's like, okay, you load the website, and now you have to wait for the ad from Project Wonderful to load. It's not all coming from the same server.
The thing is, one, the ad networks clearly can't keep up with any sort of load, and they have no real incentive to, especially if, I know this isn't the case everywhere, but there are places where the website won't load until the ads load.
Yep, it depends on a lot of different factors, browser and hosting and all sorts of stuff.
While this is interesting, it's not really a concern of mine because 1, ad block.
Yep.
And 2, even if they somehow, someday, prevent me from using ad block, I'll just use the ad block that pretends to download the ad and doesn't show it to me.
Yep.
They can't detect that ever.
Nope.
Yeah. But the more interesting one, the much more interesting one, was that supposedly, and there are a bunch of stories about this, I did not do any due diligence or dig up any further sources, but it was on Slashdot. I figured that's good enough. They were talking about how Google, at least initially, in the early hours after Michael Jackson's death, was hit by so many searches, such a massive spike in Google usage, that they thought it was a DDoS attack of some kind, and at least in some places put up the 404 while they sorted things out.
Well, I mean, that is interesting in that, you think about it, and this is part of the reason why like spam filtering and such is so difficult, because it is, and why we have CAPTCHAs and all these sorts of things. A attack is often completely indistinguishable from legitimate usage, and it's next to impossible to determine the difference between the two, even if you have like humans investigating with their own eyeballs. So it's going to be a problem basically forever.
Yep, but what I find interesting is that this really belies the technical proficiency of the greater populace, more so than people might have already suspected. Because I remember way back in the day,
I don't know, we already suspect a lot.
I still say that it belies it, because people still don't get it. Michael Jackson has died. That's the news, let's say. We know it's happened, or people hear, yeah, Michael Jackson died. Smart people go to a news aggregator of some kind, or just go to one of their trusted news sites.
CNN.com, news.google.com.
Yeah, one of those places, and confirm it. It'll be on the front page if it's legitimate.
Dig.com.
Or maybe they go to Google News and they search for it there.
I do Google News.
Yep. Or, of course, remember in the previous times, like September 11th, Princess Di, all these things in the past, you go to a place like Fark and Slashdot. Those places never go down. They can handle pretty much any traffic anyone throws at them.
Yep.
And they will always be there to give you the news when everyone else has failed.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of people go to Google, apparently, and just type Michael Jackson into Google. Now, my question to you people, obviously the tech people here they know the answer to this, but to these people, what do you expect to find? What are you looking for? You're going to find, like, I don't know, Michael Jackson's website, which is going to say he died, and you're going to find the Wikipedia article about Michael Jackson. Unless you're searching for something specific, every time I see people and they can't find something on the internet, or I see people, like, the surest sign that someone doesn't get how the internet works is when they search for generic information in a search engine.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone who searches for something like puppies or raising puppies, as opposed to searching for a specific piece of information. You're basically just asking for problems.
Yeah. I mean, you're not, that's like, you go to the card catalog in the library. Cars. I'm looking for cars. What about them? How they work? How to buy one? If you're searching, you need a specific thing. I mean, at least search for like, how did Michael Jackson die? Or, when did Michael Jackson die?
But even then, if you're searching,
or did Michael Jackson die?
If you're savvy, don't search for that. Just go to one of the news aggregators or one of the places like Fark or Slashdot, and in that story, or possibly in the comments, the answers are all going to be there.
Yeah.
There's nothing you're going to find searching on
Google.
Google.
I mean, if you're just searching, let's say he died, but now you're searching for like, Michael Jackson stuff to feel all nostalgic. Well, don't just search for Michael Jackson. You got to search for like Michael Jackson music videos, or a specific song and you want to see the lyrics.
Yeah, well, like when you went to YouTube and everyone was watching Thriller over and over and over again.
Yep. Well, it was on the front page of YouTube. They helped you out.
Yep.
But people just don't know how to use Google, and that's why I think it's actually be a problem for Google if people learned, because they'd use Google a lot less. I mean, Google is my search engine. I use it every day. I use it multiple times a day, but I use it a lot less than I ever did. I use it less and less all the time.
Well, because I don't go to Google for news. I go to like Fark and Slashdot and all those places.
Yeah.
And I don't use it to find cool things. I go to people that find those cool things for me, and I look at those.
I go to Google when there is a specific thing that I'm looking for.
Like an error code from a device.
Yeah.
I'll type that into Google.
Yeah, like a really specific thing, like, I needed this kind of plugin for this kind of, JavaScript library.
I mean, if I want generic Pokemon porn, I'll go to Bayimage. But if I want very specific Pokemon porn, like, let's say, a Pidgeot and a Vaporeon having sex,
right?
Then I go to Google and I type that. Yeah.
You gotta type Pidgeot and Vaporeon fucking, and then you'll...
Because that'll narrow it down quite a bit, and then you got to search through those, but...
Yeah. People just don't know how to use Googles.
But along those lines, apparently the Iranian election, and despite all the good that Twitter was doing, it was a drop in the bucket compared to the number of tweets that hit Twitter in the hours after Michael Jackson's death. Now, what I ask of you, Internet, what did you possibly tweet? What did you type? OMG, Michael Jackson's dead, RT, RT, RT? I mean, what?
Well, some people were saying he's dead. Some people were doing like up to the minute updates. He died.
Still dead.
Oh, no, wait, no, he's not dead. Oh, wait, yes, he is. Okay, it seems like he might have died of this. Here's the link to the 911 phone call. The constant updates like that, right?
The thing is, if you want those constant updates, you go to, again, either subscribe
only
to
one person needs to do it.
But if only one person did it, we wouldn't have these tens of thousands of tweets simultaneously.
The other thing is that some people, were posting their personal feelings, like, Goody's dead, or, oh, sorrow, or here's a link to my favorite Michael Jackson vid, or, that kind of stuff.
It saddens me that the possibility of a popular revolution in Iran, of an oppressed Persian people rising up, gets less tweets than a pop star dying.
That's just the demographic of the users of Twitter.
It is. But at the same time, the users of Twitter are looking at the Iran election as being, look, Twitter is doing something useful.
Twitter's not doing anything useful.
I think it is.
I don't think
Without
so.
Twitter, a lot of what happened there could not have happened.
Oh, it would have been fine. There's plenty of other technologies that can be used.
I disagree strongly, but that's not the topic tonight, so I'll let it slide, but I don't think you're right.
Yeah.
But anyway, things of the day. I found this on Fark, but it was an Engadget thing, so I'm sure many of you have seen it already, but I find it interesting from this sort of macabre perspective, and I've heard people talk about...
Macabre?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Macabre. They made...
A macabre on Engadget?
A clock?
Cthulhu clock?
That powers itself by catching and killing flies and then converting their bodies into fuel that is then turned into electricity to continue to fuel the death machine.
What if there's not enough flies?
Well, eventually it'll run out of power.
Uh-huh. What if it has, enough flies to run a little bit, but not enough flies to actually kill any more flies?
The fly-killing mechanism is basically just fly paper, and whenever a fly gets stuck to it, it rolls, after the fly dies, it rolls it into the bacterial vat.
But doesn't it need enough power to roll the fly?
Yep.
What if it doesn't have enough to roll the fly into the vat?
Well, then, like any carnivorous being, it dies. If you run out of power to roll push pop into your mouth...
you can't power this thing solely on flies. You need to sort of, give it some initial battery power or something.
Well, much like the umbilical cord gives you some initial power to get starting before you start eating. I don't know. There's something fascinating.
Thing is, unlike an actual clock, you can't just replace the battery. You gotta dump a bunch of flies in there to get it going.
Or just live in a place where there are flies.
I guess.
It's a concept more than anything, but it's one of those things where you look at it and it's really cool, but it's vaguely unsettling for a number of kind of ill-defined reasons.
I don't know. I don't see what's unsettling about it.
I think it's a little bit unsettling. Think about this. This is the early prototype of a machine that can continue in its existence only by killing living things and taking their energy. That is just 10 steps from Skynet.
It's all right. It's a clock.
For now.
It's counting down until Judgment Day.
It was always shocking every time I watched Terminator 2 again that the Judgment Day was so far in the past, basically. Kind of like October, whatever, 1997, the end day in Crystallis.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think this is cool, but that's all I got.
So, some dude went to Russia, which is awesome.
Like people do.
And he went to all of the Russian art museums, or at least the big, awesome ones, right? And he did a photo essay.
Ooh.
And what he took pictures of was not the art. Well, he did take pictures of the art. But in those pictures of the art, he was primarily focusing on the guards in the Russian art museums.
That's pretty cool.
Now, you know how museums always have guards who are protecting all the arts,
They have
right?
the two guys standing next to the important painting with the hands behind their backs looking at you.
Right. Apparently, though, in the Russian art museums, all the guards are old ladies with nothing better to do. Here's a quote from one of the old ladies.
Wait, so the guy basically went around Russia taking pictures of old ladies.
A woman in Moscow's State Tretyakov Gallery Museum said she often returns there on her day off to sit in front of a painting that reminds her of her childhood home. Another guard travels 3 hours each way to work, since at home she would just sit on her porch and complain about her illnesses, as old women do. So, I mean, you look at these pictures, right? And it's pretty amazing because you got like these old ladies, sitting next to like this amazing arts, but at the same time, the old ladies are like arts themselves. It's pretty impressive. And also, now I just want to go to Russia and tour the art museums because you look at these art museums and it's like, oh man, I gotta go to these museums and see what else they got.
I have not finished touring all of the New York City museums.
I know it's not easy, but yeah, I want to go to the Russian art museums big time.
Well, maybe we should do that.
I mean, look at this statue here with like it looks like Neptune or someone. It's got a big Neptune-like beard anyway. It's looking pretty good.
Uh-huh.
All right. Oh, there's a nice pillar. Okay. So, today's show, we're going to talk about some HTML5s. And Rim said he doesn't know about HTML5 so much.
Mostly I have not read, I know about it, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't read in depth all of the, like the actual standard. I haven't read any of the white papers about it.
The thing is, you don't need to know any of those things unless you're an HTML writer. The thing is, there are 3 things that people who are actually internet people need to know about HTML5, right? And those things are canvas, video, and audio, right? Right now...
Not the fact that it's no longer in the SGML family?
I don't know if it is or if it isn't.
It is not.
Big deal.
It's similar to SGML, but it is no longer SGML.
It doesn't really matter in term, who's using an edge. People always worry about that kind of stuff. Like, oh, use XHTML. Who is really using XML parsers to go and grab HTML pages? Who's really using like SGML parsers to? No one's doing that kind of stuff. All right.
Despite that, they did make it backwards compatible.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so canvas, video, and audio. These are the 3 things you need to know about. Let's start with the canvas because that's probably the least exciting, right? Basically, here's the deal with Canvas. Canvas has actually been in Firefox and some other browsers for a while, but no one's used it because not enough browsers supported it and supported it in the same way and supported it in a good way, so no one really did anything with it. It's one of those, all of these 3 things, in fact, all of HTML5 is, it's one of those chicken egg problems, right? Until all the browsers support it, nobody will write in it, and as long as most people are still using old browsers, right, then... people still won't write in it, or if they do write in it, they'll make sure to have some sort of switch that looks at what browser you're using and not use it if you're using the old browser. And thus, people have no reason to upgrade their browser because everything still works with the old browser and, such and such. It takes forever to get ahead and with new web stuff, right? But the Canvas, it has been around. It's still around. And what it is normally when you do an HTML, you can do like a table, an image, right? Some text, a paragraph, that kind of stuff. A canvas lets you have a vector drawing area, and you can use JavaScript to draw in this area. So you can go online and you can find like Wolfenstein 3D done in Canvas. And this is with no browser plugins whatsoever, and you can do vector drawing, and it involves SGML, which is a XML format for storing vector images and such. And this sort of really, pretty much goes directly after Flash, but only these sort of vector drawing applications of Flash. So you could make a video game in Canvas, or you could make Homestar Runner in Canvas, that sort of stuff. And HTML5, Canvas is in there, and it's going to be, a full-on thing. And it's going to be interesting to see, our browsers actually going to... support the canvas in the identical way? Are people going to be driven nuts that the canvas is like different in the different browsers? This kind of thing. And also, what is Flash going to do? All those websites out there that use Flash for drawing, how many stupid websites out there do you go to that are like, the front page is all flashed up, but it's just for like logos?
Well, something like this has been a long time coming, just in that Flash originally was intended, remember Shockwave?
Well, Flash isn't from Shockwave. Flash is from that other thing.
Yeah, but...
It's a separate hereditary
But those
line.
sorts of things, it was the idea that, people wanted to have very much control over what was displayed, and they wanted to do these cool things that they couldn't do, and we kind of got these proprietary products becoming the de facto standards, as opposed to having an open just standard for doing that sort of thing, and the fact that it took this long to get anything that is actually a real standard for it really is, it's not necessarily surprising, but it is a little bit saddening.
Yeah. And the thing is with the canvas, right, it's sort of, limiting and, also freeing at the same time. We can get away from the browser plugins. We might be able to do like better implementation of these things mobilely speaking, which is more and more the mobile browsers are really what's important. But at the same time, it's like, okay, do we really need like someone drawing all this crazy shit in our webpage? All people are gonna make Canvas ads. It's gonna, and it's not a plugin.
Well, that is one thing I was thinking about. The way Canvas works, it'll be much easier to create inline ads that are not easily blocked
and are also totally crazy. All over the, right now people can make an animated GIF. Wait till you see like some, some free-form vector advertisements. And you can also load images in there too, so it'd be totally out of control. Basically, Flash ads that are not a plugin.
But at the same time, it opens up an interesting situation where people in our generation and younger are so used to not seeing advertisements, at least tech people, that if this sort of technology gets to the point to where ads are intertwined with the content such that they cannot be removed easily, I see a mass migration away from ad-supported media entirely.
Mm-hmm. Now, is the video and the audio tags, they're pretty much the same thing, right? And they have the same sort of issues. In that, for as long as web browsers have been around, I mean, even in Netscape 2, you could have audio and or not video necessarily, but you could have audio in a web page, and video came later.
Remember the old MIDI file? GeoCities made it real easy to do that.
Right. And the only way to do it back then was you would pretty much just, do an embed tag to the file, and then it was up to your browser to have a plugin, right? So you had to install a plugin. If you didn't have any plugins, your browser would be like, hey, there's an MP3 embedded. I don't know what to do with it. But if you did have a plugin, like say QuickTime plugin, and that was associated with MP3, then your browser would load the QuickTime plugin, and the QuickTime plugin would get the MP3, and it would be in your page.
But, I mean, back in the day, there was a long period where this basically just did not work for the majority of people.
Well, because everyone had a different plugin, and that's the reason, this technology still works, right? And, in fact, it would work, but people don't use it on web pages anymore. And the reason is this, in that, okay, let's say I embed an MP3 in my page, right? Okay. Problem number one is that it's, if you have QuickTime and he's got Windows Media Player and he's got something else, it's going to look different for each person because all the plugins look different.
I mean,
and it's going to totally break my website if your thing is too big or too small.
Or it's got a nav bar in a weird place.
Or it's going to look wicked ugly, right? So no one wants to do that, and second of all, it's...
But at the same time, people don't want every website to install a special plugin for them because people don't trust plugins.
Yeah, that's right. If you don't have the plugin, it's going to bother you and say, hey, you got to install a plugin to play this MP3 that's in the page. And the other thing is browsers don't all handle it intelligently either. Some of them are auto-playing. You got to turn off autoplay, turn on. It's a nightmare, right? So what everyone seems to do these days is, again, they use Flash for audio and video, even though Flash was originally, the vector drawing, the canvas thing. So it's sort of like HTML5 is doing these three things to kick Flash's ass out of the out of the game.
Well, there are a lot of smaller, more subtle changes. Like I noticed just in my cursory readings that they've broken out div into a few very useful divisions.
Yeah.
They have like the fact
that doesn't make it any difference for the end user.
No, it doesn't. But for a developer and just for usability, that having a navbar tag that is defined and accepted, I think that should have been in HTML.
Yep.
I mean, from the beginning, when I learned HTML3, what did you do? You had 4 frames or something like that, and you made this like hacked together navbar in the top.
Yep. But anyway, the video and the audio tags are an interesting situation, right? A little bit more interesting. See, the canvas is pretty much standardized. It's a vector drawing thing. You use JavaScript to control it. That's it, right? The video and audio are a little different because, okay, we're going to put a video tag and an audio tag. They're going to point at a video file or an audio file. And, there's not going to be no plugin involved. It's up to the browser to play these files and provide, the whole thing.
Basically just like plugins before.
Right, so the browser does it. So it's not a separate thing, right? Because you realize most browser crashes are because of plugins. right? And everyone has like a different plugin that screws shit up, and who knows what these things are doing. And
Though I think part of the problem is it looks like they have not defined what codecs or what.
this is what I'm getting to.
Well, apparently there's some gigantic shitstorm on the internet.
This
because,
is the shitstorm I was about to discuss.
all right, the early draft that said, and I quote, user agents should support the OGG Theora video and OGG Vorbis audio.
Yes.
And then they basically took that out.
Yeah. So is the problem, right? Is okay, so if the web browser is going to allow this video and audio tag, right? Then the web browser has to include the codecs, at least the decoding parts, of the codecs for some video and audio formats, right?
All right, already trouble. I mean,
trouble. Which formats? MP3? AIFF.
And remember, a lot of these formats are still encumbered by patents. And while they are effectively de facto free, they're not legally free.
Yep.
And trouble could come.
There's also the situation of, the CPU power that is necessary to process some of these video files. There is the situation of, okay, maybe my computer is less powerful and I want to get like a lower, bit rate version of the file coming into me because I got a 56K modem or,
But basically, as far as I can tell, what happened was all the parties involved could not agree on anything, so the standard does not specify anything.
Yeah.
It went from a should, because remember, in like RFCs and things like that, language means very specific things.
Mm-hmm.
So there is should,
must
not, cannot, all those sorts of language. And should is very powerful. Should basically means that unless you can't, you must.
Yep. So... so it's like, which codec do we use? So there's a big push for OGG Theora, which is a very full open source codec of video and audio.
Of course, who was pushing it? I mean, all the big companies were not pushing it.
Well, no.
Google was pushing it.
The thing is, they didn't really, the big companies really don't care too much what the codec is.
What
they do care is they want the best quality with the least space to save on bandwidth costs.
Apple and Nokia both strongly fought against using OGG.
Yeah. Well, Apple pretty much owns H.264, so they have an interest, but other people don't have too much interest. As long as it's lower bandwidth, higher quality is what people care about, But, it's like, well, the OGG is open source, and at different bit rates is different qualities, and, if someone has a bunch of videos, now they're going to have to re-encode them all to be in the right format.
Well, there's also the trouble that OGG is not...
There's also there's the wrapper file, and then there's also the video codec and the audio codec in the video file. It's like this big mishmash, which a lot of people don't understand. People are like, my MKVs. It's like, well, what's in your MKVs? Anything could be in there. My AVIs, anything could be in there. It could be an AVI with an MP3 and an H.264 in there. It could be an MKV with like a like an XVID and a freaking, AAC in there. You never know.
Well, people don't understand how that all works.
They don't understand that works at all.
But the thing is, you shouldn't expect people to have to understand how that all works.
No, and that's another thing is, there's a lot of people who make web pages who don't really understand, fully what's going on. And, HTML5 will make it a lot easier for those people to just be like, video this, audio that. Right? But they'll be smart enough to do a video and audio tag, and that'll be a lot easier for those people than, Embed or Flash or who knows what anything that we're currently using. But it'll be much more difficult for those people to get their stuff in the right codec and to host it properly so that they won't get totally crushed.
Yep. I mean, remember back in the day when MP3s first hit the world and you often had to, quote, uncook them?
Yep.
Because browsers couldn't deal with them, and web servers, Apache, the MIME types weren't set up, weren't recognized. They would download as ASCII files that would include all this garbage.
Yep.
There was a long period where you had to download MP3s, and then half the time you would have to run special applications to pull all of the binary garbage data out of them in order to listen.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't think that'll be a problem this time around.
The cooking isn't going to be a problem.
Well, I think what's
MIME
going to
types
happen...
probably aren't going to be a problem.
My expectation is that all the formats that are commonly used on the internet will just work in every browser, and OGG will work in Chrome and nothing else.
Yeah, it's gonna
maybe Firefox will support OGG, but no one else will.
But it's gonna be a weird situation. Everyone's basically, in this attempt to make the web easier, right? And just allow. I mean, if let's say we got the whole world to switch, it would be a beautiful thing because if you were making a web page, you could just be like video, the file is at this URL, and boom, there'd be the video in your page. You could specify width and height. You could use JavaScript to like do stuff to the video because that's another thing, right? Is that right now, if you're using a plugin, basically anything in a plugin is invisible to the rest of the world. That's why Google can't search within Flash, right? You can't like use JavaScript to like, make Flash, boxes do stuff really too much. But now you'll be able to like fully do stuff with the audio and video tags with JavaScript. So for example, all right, I've always wanted to make it, right, where on our page, there was one audio player, and clicking different links on the page would load up different files in the audio player. In HTML5, that's trivial. With JavaScript, it's like a joke. But with Flash, with a Flash player, it's a nightmare. Forget it. It's not even going to happen. I guess it's possible, but it's not worth it.
It's possible in the way that crazy people will make it work, but it's not worth it, and it'll break anyway.
Yeah. So, this is actually going to make web pages, if people use it, a lot more dynamic. It's going to make the video and the audio like, an integrated part of the web experience and not this sort of application that happens to be stuck in the middle of a web page, the way Quake Live happens to be stuck on a web page. It's actually going to be part of the web page. Google's probably going to be able to, get its hands into it a little bit more for the searching and all that kind of business. It's going to be pretty exciting, but is it going to happen? It's right in the short term, everyone's going to have to code up even more difficult web pages because they're going to have to put all these if old browser do Flash, if new browser do this, if this browser do the different codec, and it's basically making things worse before they get better.
But is there any other? I mean, we have to push forward, and we have to make new standards, and we have to make this stuff work. So doing this now is better than doing it later because the longer we wait, the harder it gets.
Really?
And the more entrenched these proprietary, closed, third-party, self-interested codecs and formats and markup languages become.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be real bad for Adobe, I think, because basically, Flash is powering video on the web, right? And Silverlight is sort of in a distant second place. Basically, once the video tag is there, I mean, think about it. Most of the uses of Flash on the web now are for video playing, I mean, if they take video away from Adobe, Flash is only going to be used for, games, pretty much. And then if people actually start doing Canvas games, that's it.
Not just Canvas, but, also Unity and things like that. Flash is
that's still a plugin. That's not...
No, but the difference is Flash is primarily, it's kind of this very generic, often difficult to work with. Like, it's a tool that can do a lot of things, like Java, but it's not particularly good at doing many of those things. People just use it because it's the only alternative. It's the most well-known. It just works, but you have to really kind of bend it backwards to make it do a lot of things.
The thing is, I wonder, because Flash does do a few things, most notably, right? Flash, has the webcam kind of support going on. So you can make a YouTube video.
Should we have a webcam tag that just embeds the webcam from a local device?
Well, I think that, no, there shouldn't be a webcam tag, obviously. That has nothing to do with HTML. But there should be a JavaScript way of accessing, because right now with JavaScript, right, and web pages, you can get input from the keyboard via the form elements, text inputs, right? You get input via the mouse based on where they click in a canvas or clicking on radio buttons or checkboxes or submit buttons or links, right? But we need more ways in JavaScript of getting input from the user. And I think a next step in JavaScript should be audio and video input capture from the user and then allowing to stream that data back to the server or process it with the JavaScript locally on the user's machine.
Well, something like that in the long run.
And you stream it back, with some sort of Ajax-ish thing to the server and do stuff like that.
Well, something like that in the long run will, I think, really change the web. Because right now, look at YouTube. even as it stands, how many people will just have conversations back and forth by making videos?
Yep.
What if that was just that worked with that sort of thing happened?
You could also
on all
there should also
websites?
be a JavaScript way of capturing input from all sorts of other devices like gamepads or touch screens. If they have a special touch screen thingy,
Yep, or even just
multi-touch pads.
Simple things like sharing desktops and sharing vector graphics and shared workspaces.
Yep. So I think that's what has to come. After HTML5, we need to get JavaScript to have support for more different kinds of user input.
There are basically all these simple things that would be very useful for the internet, but companies have made products that do those things just well enough. But eventually, all of those companies will be made completely obsolete by standards that just do what these companies make a product to do.
It's just so weird. It's like, it's basically we made these operating systems for computers, and then we made browsers, right? And then in the browser, we're slowly making the whole operating system again in the browser to where the browser is becoming the operating system. It's like, why don't we just take a step back and make the operating system the browser where all that work is already done?
Well, I think that, people always wonder what Web 3.0 is going to be.
It's like we have the same piece of software running on top of itself effectively. It's like, okay, everyone, you run Windows, you run Linux, you run Mac, and that talks to your hardware. And then everyone runs a web browser on top of that, which allows us to have this common platform of JavaScript and HTML, which is really what everyone's using nowadays, even though it's, and that it's like...
But here, like I was saying, everyone says, Web 3.0 is going to be the semantic web. And I think that's too far out. That's going to require AI and all sorts of crazy things. I think what Web 3.0 would be, which is much more feasible, is to where the OS, there is no more browser. The OS is just integrated online all the time. And instead of, get rid of this idea
you
of
can't
websites.
tell a web application apart from a regular application.
There aren't even websites. You're just interacting you have an interface that just interacts with data. Some of it is local, some of it is shared. Everyone is a server and a receiver simultaneously all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hosting. You don't go to Libsyn host MP3s. I'm listening to an MP3 that someone else is sharing right now in their web browser and chatting with 4 other people, and all our computers are just connected to each other in real time.
You know what we should do? See, that's a good vision for the distant future. But what we should do is you should just make that happen in a lab. Get like 10 computers and just make it happen in the lab.
Dude, here you realize how often now, when I was at RIT, there were all the research labs for like IT research at RIT.
Yep.
And I'd always kind of look in and be like, I wonder what those people are doing. And I didn't really get involved. Almost every day, I would kill to be back at RIT and have access to those labs to do stuff like that.
Yep.
Because that's what those kids are doing right now. I should have gotten into the academia, but I didn't. I wanted to make money. I wanted to have a job.
And look where it got you.
A lot of money and a job.
Yep. That's all right. So yeah, HTML5, be on the lookout, and of course, upgrade your browser. As anyone who listens to this site is upgrading their browser, but upgrade your browsers as soon as you can to get the HTML5 goodness.
Actually, my company's doing something cool, right? We need IE because all the enterprise crap supports IE, and even Silverlight now, so we have to use it. But we have software to update people's PCs because everyone smart uses Firefox. The update software is going to go through, and anyone who's installed Firefox, it will forcibly update them regularly.
All right.
To keep them up to date.
Okay.
Not Opera, though.
But yeah, keep updating your browser so you can get the HTML5 goodness, and basically, try to get other people to upgrade their browsers too, so we can get away from Flash and the old web, because the sooner everyone starts using HTML5 browsers, the sooner, web developers will see, aha, look at these web stats. There's only 10% of users still using IE7 and 8. That means we can go ahead. Hooray! And they'll stop doing, the old stuff, and they'll stop supporting all the old crap, and they'll be happy. So make us happy.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.